Hello and welcome along to episode number 5 of TGP Has a Podcast. This week we will be looking back on the seasons we've had running over the past couple of months on TGP1, TGP2 and TGPDiRT. This week I am joined by veteran Phil Bargewell and newcomer to the podcast Aidan Griffins. Hello gents.
Hello.
Well, both these two have taken part in at least 2 of the series that we're going to be talking about this year. So both will have some very good insights of the seasons that we've had just passed us by. So, gents, we're going to start by talking about TGPDiRT and the fantastic return that we had for Season 4 and the title battle that we had, and even battles throughout the field, really, as there were close encounters all the way through. TGPDiRT this season was obviously split into 2 categories. We had main championship, and then we had TGPDiRT 2, which was for the lesser competitive drivers, shall we say politely. So, Phil, we're going to start off with you. Looking back on the TGPDiRT season, I mean, what a returning campaign we had.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, start off with how many people we had in. We had 40 people join for this season.
Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we thought we were going to limit it to 30, but then more and more interest kept coming, so it went up to 40. So great credit to everyone who turned up and took part. And it's just been great fun. Obviously, a great time, and it was a free game on PlayStation 4, so everyone kind of jumped on it. But it's just great fun to get back on a dirt rally game again. So it was just thoroughly enjoyable, even frustrating at times, but still enjoyable.
Well, rightly you say there, just the turnout we have. That's the highest turnout we've obviously ever had for a TGP league. Obviously, a lot of leagues are restricted in numbers, but this sort of competition, you can have as many as you want. But to have 42, I think to be exact, active members throughout most of the season was just fantastic. And added such a unique dynamic, I think, to the season all the way through that we were able to see continuing, thankfully, into some great rallies and some great battles.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there was like stories throughout the throughout the campaign in TGP, in both like the main championship and in the Dirt 2 championship. The Dirt 2 championship was very exciting towards the end, and even in the main championship, it went right down to the wire. So great campaign for a game that's come back into our heart and mind, let's say. It's been a good comeback.
Yeah, certainly. And it was a very interesting season. So we're going to obviously start with the top of the championship. The only time this has ever happened in TGP series history, of all the 9 years that this series has been going for, we have never had a championship decided on countback. And here we are, the first time, with Softy taking 4 rally wins and Roy 2. It was Softy who was our eventual champion. Phil, does that really highlight just how great this season was?
Oh, it's got to be, yeah. I mean, Roy and Softy were the cream of the crop, let's say. You know, the quickest and most consistent. Roy definitely the most consistent out of everyone. He was like constantly in the top 2, top 3. I don't think he ever left the top 3. And Softy would have probably been consistently in the top 1 or 2, barring his puncture on, was it stage 6 in New Zealand, I think it was, which did make it very tight towards the end. And I think Roy's extremely gutted to miss out on the championship on countback alone. It's gutting, but what an effort, and what an exciting end to an exciting campaign.
Yeah, definitely. I think that we really saw those two a lot of the time really going toe-to-toe and absolutely ragging every single inch of performance they could at every given opportunity. And a lot of the rallies, there were actually sizable, well, not sizable, that's probably not the right word, but gaps between the two of them. But I think actually the closest gap between the two was at the last rally, I think, from memory, in America, which was a great battle.
Yes, yeah. I think well, Roy nicked it off Softy in the end. I think Softy made a few mistakes towards the end of the rally in America, like especially on stage 6. So, and Roy's just super consistency paid off. Roy did make a few mistakes in the round 5 in Spain, which didn't like. I don't think it would have made a difference because Softy was incredible at Spain. But yeah, just so tight, and again, a credit to Roy for still having to go and still like pushing, even though the odds were kind of against him. So full credit to Roy because Softy had absolutely smashed the field apart, and Roy was the only one who could really keep up with him.
Yeah, definitely. And Aidan, what do you think would led to these two being so consistent? Was it just sheer talent, or was there other factors involved there? Maybe being clever with car choices and strategies during the rallies.
I think it was a bit of everything, really. I think they are obviously very talented. They're obviously, I think, the two best in the league. But I think it was the fact that they wanted to constantly beat each other. Roy constantly wanted to beat Softy because Softy, I think, is the quickest of the two. But like Phil and you said, that Roy is the more consistent over a course of 6 stages. But I think it was, if Roy beat Softy, Softy would then want to beat him straight back. So I think, they were constantly pushing each other. And I think a key thing was the New Zealand last stage. Softy, you can count him as lucky or unlucky because Arctic Devils had ripped off a wheel and completely ended his rally, I think, in stage 1. Softy was, I guess you could say, lucky to say only get to puncher because he could have been out and we wouldn't have had this amazing countback championship.
Yeah, 100%, and it shows just how one relatively little mistake. You have to say he just ran a little bit wide coming out of the corner, which put him into the rock. Very nearly cost him the entire championship because of how many places he dropped due to that puncture.
Yeah, I mean it's rally. Like if you make one mistake, you might get away with it because sometimes a car behind you might have made the mistake and you have about an 8-second buffer, but Roy and Softy never really had a big buffer, so if they made a mistake, it was going to cost them massive. And especially if Luca or Zach were on their day, then they could have kept them on their toes as well. But yeah, I mean, getting a puncher isn't the worst thing. Like you can obviously retire and go down a cliff and get a minute penalty like we've seen at some rallies. But yeah, I think they were just two. They were unstoppable, those two. They were absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I see what you mean there, and it'll be certainly interesting to see how the two of them get on next season as we move towards just the R5 cars, or actually those are both the rallies that Roy won. Obviously, one of them was where Softy got his puncture, so maybe I think he was winning up to that point anyway. But Roy obviously taking it in USA, so could we maybe see, because Softy won the vast majority of the whole of the stages we actually did this season. I don't know what his total was in the end, but he won at least 3 in every single rally we did. But Roy showing that maybe a little bit more edge in the R5 cars, could that put him in pole position for the title next year?
I think so, because when we went to the likes of New Zealand, it was incredibly close with the R5s. Obviously, it's the quickest cars that we used all season. And it wasn't just those two that were close, the whole field was close. I think I had my best rally in there as well. So I think the R5s suit most people, and obviously they seem to be suiting Roy at the minute. Whether he could do that over a full course of a season, obviously we still need to wait and see, or whether there'll be a dark horse that's ready to come through with the R5. I back Softy again. I think he doesn't make many mistakes. He does put the sweat in, though. This is Softy. But he doesn't make many mistakes, and neither does Roy, but you can't be slower than someone and sort of make the same mistakes, if that makes sense. Like, you are going to have to be quicker than him at certain aspects. I don't think Roy has that yet. I think he's a bit more risky. I think Roy, like, he'll go for like a bit more of a cat, or he'll throw the car in a bit quicker than Softy. But I think Softy just overall, I think is just the better driver and the quicker one, to be honest. I think he'll win Season 5.
Well, it's an interesting take you mentioned there. Now, we're going to come away from Softy and Roy for a bit. I feel like they've had a lot of time talked about them this season. We had some fantastic battles further down the grid, and the battle for third I thought was brilliant, because we had what was realistically 6 drivers who could have taken third place, and for a lot of the season it looked like Dom, or I hate to say it, Phil, you could have taken it. However, it was Zach who came and took P3, and I think that was brilliant for the league, wasn't it? Having someone different finishing in the top 3 in a TGP game.
Through gritted teeth, I say that. I mean, Dom's a fluky so-and-so. I've been waiting, was it 4 years for my £5? Dodgy man, honestly. But anyway, that was my own fault. Not carrying a spare tyre in Australia. I had to do stage 4 on 3 wheels. So
I remember laughing at that a lot at the time. Yes,
it was quite funny.
But yeah, Zach did an incredible job because I think he was kind of a late bloomer. I think he didn't do terribly in like the first round or two. I think he was about like 7th or 8th, or maybe even 9th. But then he just came, like, as the season progressed, he just got more confident. He started getting quicker, and then all of a sudden he was like challenging like thirds in rallies. So Zach did an incredible job, and he was consistent once he got up there as well. So the pressure was on me and Dom and Luca. And Luca, just to throw my money in there, Luca could challenge for the title. He does have the pace. He just made a few more mistakes, and critical mistakes. He was out in Poland.
You mentioned Luca there. I mean, when the only rally where we didn't have Softy and Roy in the top 2, he finished second. Yet he never was in the top 3 in any other rally aside from that. So clearly he has got the pace. And he took obviously a stage win in Poland, as you mentioned before his collision. So it's certainly possibilities for Luca to challenge, isn't there?
Absolutely, he's got the pace. He's got the commitment to do it. I was when watching Luca's runs back, he is fully committed. So there's no lacking in commitment from him. It's just ironing out those mistakes, which is where Roy and Softy kind of have the edge over him. He'll probably hate me for saying that. But that's just my opinion. I think Roy and Softy have the edge on being more consistent and maybe knowing when to push hard and when to back off a little bit, But yeah, Luke is definitely a title threat, you got to say.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think the only person who sort of was in that battle for the top 3 who didn't end up getting a podium all season was Dan, actually, and that's just because Dan was too inconsistent, or did he just get unlucky in a couple of scenarios, like in the last round where he was comfortably running in the top 3 and would have finished second had it not been for a puncture on the last stage? Is that just inconsistency, inexperience, or just bad luck?
I think this is Dan's first foray into the dirt league, so probably just a bit of an experience. But Dan did incredibly well all season. He's got the pace to be fighting for podiums. I'll throw it over to Aiden and see what his opinion of it. But I think it was just a bit of an experience on a dirt game, especially with in the pressure situation where you do your runs and some people have gone, some haven't, and you kind of got to know how far to push and how maybe where to push. So I think Dan he'll definitely be a threat for podiums next season. What do you think, Aiden?
Yeah, I think that lets him down. I think on some of his videos that he has posted is sometimes it'll be like a pace note, and it'll be like keep left over the jump, and he'll put it over to the right or the middle. So when he is then landing, he's then compromising his whole exit or not having control of the car. But yeah, he is quick. Does make a few mistakes, but in Poland, hitting the marshal, and eventually killing him. I think Dom confirmed that in his review. But just hitting the marshal and just picking up silly little penalties that could have been avoided. And even then, even if it's a 10-second time penalty, if there's 2 cars in front of you that are 7.5 seconds and 8 seconds, that's 2 positions gained, and that could be the third or the second. So I think he is quick, but he does need to, I think, maybe tone it down a bit. I think he's a bit like Luca. He is quick. I don't think he's on Luca's pace. He is quick, but he just needs to keep a bit of a cool head and not take everything sort of flat out. I think he just needs to chill just that little bit more, and I think better results will start to come his way.
Yeah, definitely, and it could be a very interesting battle next season with them all going for the titles as they are, and the positions following. So we touched on briefly TGP2 that was obviously also running this season, and we had a very consistent performance again from one of the drivers, with Chris Johnson coming out as eventual champion of that. He will be moving up to I say moving up, they compete together, but he will be taking part in the main championship next season. But did he deserve it? I suppose mainly. He looked like he did. He was incredibly consistent.
I would say so. I think I watched a lot of Dirt 2 to see where my brother was. But Chris, at the start of the season, was a bit rocky. But I think for a Dirt 2 driver, he was quick. He didn't make major mistakes. Obviously, there was a few stages where he would maybe roll it. But they weren't DNFs, they weren't throwing it off cliffs. They were keeping it on the stage, getting to the end, and finishing it in a reasonable time where his competitors would look at his time and go, right, I have a job on my hands here. And then if his competitors would come across the finish line of stage one and they'd see maybe 10 seconds behind Chris, and that's maybe the maximum they can do, I think that they already felt defeated. I think throughout the whole season there was only really 4 or 5 cars in Dirt 2 which I think were really counted to challenge Chris, and even on that occasion there was only 2 or 3 out of the 5 that really did it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's just what played into his hands. So his nearest challengers were Alex Zaffro and Alistair, both having, again, rocky, I think you described there, Aidan, campaigns. I don't think the pun was intended. But, they could have challenged further. Could they have played a bigger part? Were they just too inconsistent? I mean, Alistair, I remember having a couple of issues in stages which cost him a lot of time. Alex, I think, actually failed to finish in the last round. So was that... could they have played bigger parts in the season and the title for Dirt 2? Or was Chris just in general too quick?
I think... if the season was longer, I think obviously if we could use some of the DLC tracks like we do like in a custom championship sort of thing, I think they would have posed more of a threat. I don't know if Alex Zaffro had ever played a rally game before. I don't know if that is because I think he's more Formula 1 and stuff like that. So obviously it is a bit of a difference. I think Alex grew as the season went on, along with Alistair, who had never even owned a racing game until F1 2019. And jump on Dirt Rally struggled at the start, and I think once he got the hang of it and knew what he had to do, I think he won 2 out of the 3 last rallies or something like that. I think if we could have the rallies like Sweden and Finland, and it was a longer sort of season, I think we would have had more of a title fight than what we did. But I think there is more to come from the likes of Alex. And Alistair and Chris. I think everyone in Dirt 2 has more to give. It's just whether they can find that in the new season.
Yeah, certainly. But we had a lot of drivers as well, which maybe didn't quite live up to expectations in the season for various different reasons. Not just due to, say, DNFs or poor pace. But we had certainly had drivers, I hate to say it, like Jean, Owen, and actually you, I think, Aidan. And yes, particularly, I'm going to mention it, Chris Thurgood, 2-time TGP Dirt champion, who finished outside the top 10. Did he? Yes, he was outside the top 10.
Yeah.
And only scored 32 points all season. So what sort of a shocking season can Chris put that down to?
No, I think Phil will agree here. Has not been able to restart his game like he could on the first one.
Chris, if you're watching, you know it's true.
I think that is probably the main reason. Yeah, there were a few drivers that were disappointing. I want to put mine down to, because I started well. I started competitively. I was scoring a few points here and there, and then as Alistair got quicker, I got worse. So I think he took my luck. So I'm putting it down to that. He managed to get the luck from me and put it into his rallies. But yeah, Chris, a double dirt champion, 16th. Myself down in 19th. I'm disappointed with that. But can we talk about the elephant in the room, Mike Noon? 0 points.
I was just about to mention that.
I mean, as
Mike,
we all know,
you were laughing at my one stage of comedic time, and Mike, you had at least 18 stages.
I think I had a whole season of comedy, and I'm sure that people loved tuning into my weekly comedy when I stream my stages. I can't really put it down to anything. I'm just not very good. The only cars I seem to actually do okay in is the R5s.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
I mean, actually, I say that Argentina was going well until that crash, which I think 4 or 5 people crashed at the same point as I did. But it's just, I just couldn't get the hang of it, and I didn't put enough time into it as well. Yeah, I know a lot of people weren't practicing as much as others. But yeah, I just didn't put enough time into it at all. So I'll put that down to my reason of failure. I'm still going to remain relatively stubborn and not admit that I'm just purely a hopeless driver. Because we'll talk about that later when we get to TGP2.
Oh, we will. Oh, yes, we will.
So I think that rounds off TGPDiRT quite nicely. So we very much look forward to Season 5. As we mentioned there, we're doing the same 6 rallies again with different stages, just in the R5s. And that season will be getting underway in the next couple of weeks, which we very much look forward to. So now we move on to TGP1, and what was looking like it was going to be a fantastic and thrilling title-deciding night, but for one incident, which I'm sure we will talk about. So going into the final night, we had Corey and Machine Fishy, who had rarely been, I think, about 7-point gap separating the two of them all season, just toing and froing one way or the other. Actually saying that Machine Fishy missed the opening 2 rounds, so it was obviously bigger after that. But we had a fantastic battle between the two of them for the title. And it led with Corey taking his first TGP1 title. Another man joining the slim list of people who have taken TGP1 and TGP2 titles. Slim list. Is he the only one? I can't remember now from the top of my head. There's not been very many, let's put it that way.
Sure.
But a great season from him and Fishy, but Fishy just couldn't keep it up on the final night for a couple of reasons. But chaps, a great season in TGP1 this season, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'll start with this one. Yeah, it was I think more entertaining, but I think that might be down to the current crisis in the world, because we had a bit more time on our hands. So it was something to actually look forward to, was a TGP1 night or a TGPDiRT night. But yeah, thoroughly entertaining season. Title fight went down to the wire. Could have had 3 if maybe Matt didn't have to pull out for his reasons. But it was still a great season. Quite a few unexpected podiums throughout the season. So yeah, really enjoyable.
And an unexpected winner as well, I think we have to say, who didn't score any other points that season apart from his win in round 3 with Jack Craig there. So massive kudos to him for winning round number 3 there. But Aidan, were we robbed a little bit of a 3-way title fight with Matt as well, or do you think that actually Corey and Fishy would have would have taken the season with a grasp anyway.
I think we were treated whether it was a 3-car fight or a 2-car fight. I think obviously it raced Matt Tibos over a few seasons, and he is very quick. He is very hard to match. Could only do it on a few occasions, and even then it was once in a blue moon. But he seemed to have lost his edge, I think, this season. He was spinning, he was invalidating qualifying laps, he wasn't qualifying what he should have been. Or he was just getting involved in incidents. And I think if he had stayed, because obviously he did leave halfway through, I think if he had stayed, I still think it would have been Corey and Fishy. I think Matt was a bit too inconsistent this season. But yeah, like the title fight was a bit ruined on the final week, which obviously wasn't great. But I think we were still treated to a fantastic spectacle of those two chopping and changing first position during races and in the championship throughout the whole season. So I think whether it was 3 or 2 cars, I think it was still going to be a fantastic title fight.
So across the 20 races that we had, they won 13 of them, those two drivers there, with Corey taking 8 and Fishy taking 5. We had Khalifa also in the Alpha. He picked up 3 wins. He picked up the first and the last win of the seasons, which helped Alphas take their Constructors' title glory. So congratulations to the two of them there as well. And Aidan, you obviously narrowly missing out on third in the championship by 1 point, with you taking a win earlier on in the season. And then, Matt, the only other driver to have won a race that season that we haven't we just mentioned there. So the 6 different winners across the season there. So in the final night, we were treated to a chaotic, I think the best way to describe it is race in Belgium. And then Machine Fishy, was the championship leader going into this one by just 7 points, I think, from the top of my head. And it all went wrong for him after a spin, actually from you, Phil, which caused a little bit of issues for those behind. Fishy avoiding action and then finding himself out of the race. That is the only thing we can put down to Fishy not winning the title, isn't it, that moment?
That probably cost him the biggest moment, yes. I have a feeling Dom was part of this script for some reason. Had to mention me here. Hey, look, I was in the unattainable position of actually winning a Grand Prix after qualifying on pole as well, a bit shockingly. So it was unfamiliar territory. I made a mistake going into P1, but I didn't get collected. So Corey, I think it was Kyle, and Machine Fishy went around the outside of me. And as you know, going on the outside of someone on P1, if you go off the
very
circuit,
difficult.
It's bumpy as. So if you're coming back on, you've got to take caution. And I think him and I think Kyle as well just both got it wrong. Came back on the circuit to everyone else who got it right, and just, carnage ensued.
What I think was the other problem with you spinning there was the way you had spun. You were on, you weren't off the circuit, but you weren't on it. So you were on where cars would be going wide on the curb. And so, you either had to go right or left. And I got quite lucky, actually, in that whole build-up thing. Because I came through Poland completely blinded. All I had known is you had spun. I had no idea where you were. And then all I could hear was screaming down the mic of Dom. So obviously I knew something had happened. And then once I'd come out of Poland, I had to stamp on the brakes, which is, you shouldn't be doing that at the end of Poland. And I had Machine Fishy getting collected by Khalifa. So I had this flying Renault and this stopped Alfa Romeo just careering towards me. So I'm counting myself lucky I wasn't involved in that. But I think it was just you being sat on the curb. But obviously you couldn't control that. So I mean,
well, I think it's one of those things that can lead to anything. I mean, the way the car spins, how people then react to it. You've got such a short window of time to react, haven't you? That actually, it's very difficult to get it right if someone spun in front of you without losing time or even losing the control of the car. And it was an unfortunate moment for Fishy. And Corey went on to win the race, just to really rub salt in the wound. It wasn't even if he got damage and he could pit and try and gain some positions back. That was it. game over.
The parting of the sea, wasn't it, for Corey? Just everything fell into place.
Yeah.
Well, completely. And Corey then actually went into the last race with quite a sizable margin as well. That was, I think, what really hit home for Fishy was that Corey went on to win, because both of them had races where they'd won and the other hadn't finished or had finished outside of the points already that season. So it wasn't the first time this had happened, but it was the first time. It was one more time, sorry, that Fishy had it and Corey hadn't. So a bit disappointing. I can imagine from Fishy there.
I think one thing to add to that actually about Fishy is I think he didn't win the championship, right? But I think he deserves a lot more credit because he wasn't there for the first week, so he missed the first 2 races. So that's already 50 points. Well, 52 if you get the 2 fastest lap points down in the drain. So he's already had to claw back decent points margin from not being there from the first week, and he was in the title fight 7 points ahead going into the final week.
Yeah, completely. Well, we saw some good battles throughout the campaign in terms of position. Aidan, we mentioned you missing out on third by 1 point. I can't imagine the devastation in the Griffins household that evening. As I can't remember the last time you finished in top 3 of a TGP1 season, if ever.
I believe I finished 4th last. 2 seasons ago, because technically last season is the season we're talking about now. But yeah, I think it's 2 fourths in a row now, which obviously isn't great. And I think when I was teamless with Softy, I was very consistent. And towards the end of the season, I sort of fell away when I was in the Renault. But I was very happy with 4th. And then obviously I jumped ship, went to Red Bull with a teammate. And it was very up and down. I think, I had 4 podiums in a row. One of them obviously was my win, but there was constantly finishing 3rd and then 7th and then not finishing, but there were like mistakes of my own. So I was making mistakes under the safety car, like Russia. All credit to Jack Craig, but I'm sorry, that race should have been mine. That's my race. Like, I'm happy for him, fair play. But
Jack, if you're listening, this isn't views of the whole podcast team. It's just Aidan's, honestly.
No, but speeding under the VSC, obviously, I think a driver was a bit harsh for that. And then obviously I got damage under the safety car. So, to make it sound nicer, the team called me in because there was no point going. But yeah, the season was just constantly up and down. And then in Abu Dhabi, it was a roller coaster because the safety car, the VSC came out. I dived in erratically, cut the pit exit, and managed to jump Corey. So I had confirmed 3rd at the time. And then I'd been overtaken by Corey, so I was back down to 4th. So I needed Khalifa to beat Machine Fishy, and then Machine Fishy spun. Which then put me back into a podium position, which gave me back 3rd. And then obviously I lost it by a point due to being reported. So I lost it after the race, which I think was a bit more gutting.
Yeah, certainly. And we can't get through the TGP1 and talking about it without talking about Phil's dramatic inconsistency through the season. You were quick at times, Phil, but you only got 1 podium. I mean, what's this about? I mean, you'll find out I can't talk when we get to TGP2, but this was awful, Phil.
What are you talking about? It's fairly consistent.
Well, I'm just reading the script Dole gave. Sorry?
I knew you had a hand in that.
What I want to add to that, Phil, is throughout the whole season when you were racing, the whole season we do a bit of sweat, and I'd think you were sandbagging, whether you were or not. And then you're like, it's fine, Aidan, I can match you on race pace, and I wouldn't see you for the whole race.
No, it's because
you'd be down to like 8th or 7th, and I'm celebrating in 3rd place.
My problem is I can race fine. It's qualifying, and that has always been my Achilles heel since F1 began time many years ago. I just cannot qualify to save my life, except Spa for some reason.
I think we can let you off. I mean, like 60-year-old playing an F1 game is some achievement.
I swear. But I will add something though, because to add to this season, seeing Ginger Andy back battling and getting 2 podiums.
Oh yeah,
it's quite incredible.
It's absolutely fantastic to have Andy back, and I'm going to use a quote that he said, which was that this season of TGP1 is the best league racing season he's ever done, and if he tries to deny it, it's a lie. So Andy, normally can sometimes be a bit of a critic of us here at TGP, but he still enjoyed this one. But no, I completely agree. Great to have some old faces back in terms of Andy. Great to see some of the drivers still going, like Roy and John in the league as well, and Dan still plugging away there, getting himself a couple of podiums. But I think it was a really good TGP1 season for us all to look back on. And the last one, of course, on F1 2019. We look forward to F1 2020 next, and the league that will be running on that, which will be starting in summertime around August, if my memory serves me right. And have we got a good season to look forward to next season in TGP1? If we, with a lot of the drivers we assume are staying, are we in for a treat on a new game as well?
I would say so. I think you have obviously new games, so everyone has to get used to the new handling and stuff like that, new physics if there is massive changes. But I think one of the key ones which might help some of the drivers that don't like doing stuff while they're racing is the whole ERS thing. Having that automatic and just having an overtake button. Because I think we are going to see the drivers who just keep spamming the overtake button and constantly have to recharge the battery against the drivers who are more conservative and are just happy to just sit and defend. But I think if most drivers are staying, I think we could have a cracking season if the game is good.
And 2 new circuits as well, of course, at Holland and Vietnam. So that's 2 new challenges. And by the time we actually run the season, we might not have even seen those races take place in real life as well. So does that put even more pressure on for a driver?
I don't think so, because we are seeing the hot lap stuff as well. So I think most people are going to know the circuits, but by then, obviously, Cody's are putting the stuff out. But it was sort of the same on F1 2015, though, wasn't it, with Mexico?
Well, very true.
I think yes, because, I mean, with the exception of Zandvoort, people probably maybe remember or know Zandvoort from different games, watching different series.
Yeah.
Hanoi, however, is completely new, and we don't know which way that track goes, left, right, straight, roundabout. Well, you do from a map, but where's your braking points? Yeah. That's the thing. And
it's hard to reference then, isn't it?
Absolutely. A new game, new driving physics, we assume. So it's just getting to grips with it again, finding a setup, and yeah, it'll be difficult to begin with, I think.
Well, we've certainly got that to look forward to, and hopefully many more to come as well, as we take another step in the history of TGP1 and all of the leagues that have fallen us before and will do again. So we're going to come on now to TGP2, which obviously also wrapped up the week just gone. We had a fantastic performance all the way through the season from Matthias Hoffner, who took the championship comfortably with a really dominant performance all through the season. No one else, he didn't even give anyone a look in for that title. Consistency all the way through. Some really good driving as well, and the others just had to sit and watch, didn't they, chaps?
Yes, I was waiting.
There was very good enthusiasm there.
Yes, I was waiting for it because I thought it might have popped up first there. I think I called him King Hoffner because his name was Kong Hoffner. So King Hoffner at the end of the season, he was absolutely on fire. I mean, I joined the commentary team a bit later in the season, so I missed the first few races. But from what I saw, he was consistently top 5, and he wouldn't rush in the race either. If he had a bad start, he'd sit behind, wait for the pit stops, and pounce. And then once he got the lead, that was it. He was gone. No one was catching him. It was, fantastic season. And him getting promoted to TGP1, I look forward to racing with him. So, can't wait for that.
We sort of ended up with a little bit of a Viking revolt, didn't we? In TGP2, the season just gone. If any of you don't know what I'm talking about, we had about 5 Danish drivers take part in the season with us, just gone, and 4 of them finished in the top 5. A really incredible performance from all of those chaps there, with the majority of them will be moving up to TGP1 for next season. We can't go without mentioning Matthias's brother, of course, Casper, putting in a great performance, coming home P5, had a few unfortunate races with incidents going on, and obviously taking the Constructors' crown home for the Hofstner brothers. So yeah, really strong performances from both of those, really, wasn't it? They were both very quick, with, of course, Casper picking up a memorable win in Monaco as well, beating his brother by about 0.02 of a second, wasn't it, from memory?
The Monaco Grand Prix, I think, stands out as, I think, Lee's best race. I think he played the strategy sublime. He did get quite lucky, I think, with not having any traffic. I think every car that he came up behind peeled into the pits. But, you can't really just mark a driver on that. He didn't put it in the wall. He was quick. He made the strategy work, and he kept the championship winner behind him. Whether obviously his brother was maybe slacking off a bit, as it was his brother, or their teammates. But I think Monaco stands out as the best race, I think, for Mercedes. They were thrown at so many curveballs with safety cars and VSCs and traffic, and they sort of just brushed it off as if it wasn't even there. Like, they were genuinely untouchable this season. Obviously, Lee was a bit unlucky, like you said, but I think on another day, another season, I think it's a 1-2 for them too in the championship.
Definitely. Well, I mean, the team as a whole, they took 11 wins, 7 going to Matthias and 4 going to Casper. So just really fantastic performances from the both of them. And it'll be really interesting to see what they both do in TGP1 next season, won't it, Phil?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, I want to say, well, they did work well together, barring Hungary, where they came together.
Crashed into each other, yeah.
If they're listening, I do apologise for that, for bringing that one back up. But yeah, they look like a great partnership and a formidable team in TGP2. It'll be a bit harder for them, I would say, come TGP1, unless, of course, the handling just works in their favour. Imagine if they come in and then dominate TGP1. That would be something, wouldn't it?
That'd be something else. Yeah, really impressive. Well, the other Danes that we had join them towards the top of the standings were Smokey Jays, a sort of TGP2 veteran, I guess you could almost call him now. He came home P4. Dexter coming home P3. But what a fantastic season for Jordan. He's always there, isn't he? He's somehow always competitive one way or another. He used some interesting strategies during the season as well. But to come home P2 is a really impressive performance for him. Only taking one victory, it has to be said, throughout the season, which was Hungary, where, of course, we had the two Hofstner brothers actually collide, but that didn't really gift him the win as they were further down at the time. Just a very good, consistent season from him, wasn't it, really?
I think with Jordan, I was a bit disappointed with the way he started the season. Because obviously last season Jack Craig won it, but Jordan, Chris, and Alistair all kept Jack on his toes. But coming into this season, they all, obviously Jack got promoted, but they all, like Chris, Jordan, and Alistair, they all started very sluggishly, getting involved in incidents, qualifying where they shouldn't have been. But I think out of the three of them, Jordan flicked a switch halfway through the season and got it working for him. Obviously, the one race winning to finish second after a poor start. And yeah, he does do weird strategies in like qualifying in the race, but he makes it work. I couldn't see me making that work. I mean, so fair play to him using the hard compound of tires most of the time as well. So I mean, he makes it work for him. It's working. I think he just needs to go that step further now and go win the championship.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely one person we are hoping to see a little bit more from next year is Alistair. A little bit too inconsistent. You mentioned relative rookie to racing games in general as well, but hopefully we'll see a little bit more from him next season. As you know, at times he was very competitive. He also took a couple of race wins as well from memory. So you know he's got the ingredients. He just needs to make the pie, doesn't he, in the next couple of seasons?
Yeah, I think if he looks at the seasons he's done, I think this is his third season. I think last season, I think he would have put as his best. That I think it was third in the championship. I think he's now finished sixth twice. His qualifying game is flawless. He's fantastic in qualifying. I will give him that. He has the one that paid, and even in the sweat sessions, I think it was Singapore. Jean was in the chat saying Alistair was matched for the times he did in the sweat session. He then went round again and went 6/10 quicker. He does lack the race pace, which is frustrating. I think he maybe should have won the championship last season. I think there was a bit too much team orders going on with him and Jack, like giving each other the toe and not letting each other by. I think they messed around with that too much, and it sort of ruined the championship fight. But yeah, this was the first racing game that he's owned, was F1 2019. So came into it completely blind. But he is still finding his feet, and hopefully he can win that championship so he can come and join me in a team.
Definitely. Well, we had a few disappointing results as well for some drivers in the league, not to mention Dom, obviously multiple champion, Joe as well, multiple champion, myself, champion, Jacko as well. He's been a long-term figure in TGP, scoring not very many points at all as he bows out in his retiring season. He's obviously played a big part in TGP along the way, now taking a step back from driving. But what will, three of those drivers be looking for most the next season that they do?
Dom Talent.
It's a valid point.
And his wallet when he pays me finally, because I will have another bet with him. I mean, a new game could bring like their driving styles back into it. Every new F1 game has something different, which brings out best in people or brings out the worst out of people. So it's a little trek into the unknown. They'll be hoping it'll come in circle and come back better for them. I'm sure they're desperately want to be fighting for podiums more consistently the next season.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as we mentioned, TGP1 and 2 will join us again in around August time. TGPDiRT coming back a lot sooner, starting in the next couple of weeks. But we're all very much looking forward to, it would be tomorrow night by the time this has come out, where we take part in the first ever TGP GT League. Obviously, we did our preview on it last week, so go back and check that one out when you get chance. But gents, obviously the three of us all taking part in it. How good will this league be? How much promise does it show already?
I think for me it's going to be a long season, but I think the whole structure's there with the tyre wear and the car liveries and the circuits and the race distances and stuff. I think we have the right group of people as well, so we're going to have fun, clean, competitive racing. I think it is new for everyone. This isn't something I don't believe TGP's ever done before. This is the first Gran Turismo game I've owned since the PS2. So I think it is going to be a cracking season. I don't think for me, though. I think it's going to be just trying to score points.
Just to kind of, I'll add on to that. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, Gran Turismo games, I've been playing them since I was about 7-year-old, I think, which was only 22 years ago before anyone comes in. Yes, 22 years ago was well before Aiden was even born. Sadly, but so I've been playing Gran Turismo games before Aiden even existed on this planet. But it's always great fun to drive. First time actually having a league race on this game, and I think the battles are going to be better than you would probably get on an F1 game, just because of the dynamics of the cars and the circuit. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
What I think one thing will be to look out for, sorry Mike, is...
No, carry on.
I had faith in you for TGP2, and you let me down.
I thought we got through the episode without talking about me and TGP2.
I've seen some promising pace for a podium, so if you don't score a podium, you've let me down again.
This is ridiculous. I thought I got away with it. Well, we've got all that to look forward to as TGP seems to continue to grow from strength to strength with the great leagues that we've had this season across all those three categories. All of them were fantastic. The first time ever we've gone to count back in TGP with the return of that TGP1 season that was memorable for all the right reasons. Some really close racing and some great races and a dominant TGP2 display. We've got so much to look forward to over the rest of the year for TGP series, and we'll be all really looking forward to that. So thank you for joining me, gents. And
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure.
Good. I'm glad to hear. And we will obviously look forward to seeing what the league has in store over the next couple of months. And we're actually doing our last episode of the podcast next week, where we will be doing a live podcast as well, which is going to be jolly entertaining. So we look forward to that. We look forward to seeing you all soon, and let's hope we can have a fantastic season on TGP GT as well. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you soon.